Hi, and welcome to The Working Songwriter, the show where today's best songwriters come to talk shop. I'm your host, Joe Pug. Each episode here, we host a distinguished guest, and we ask them to go deep on their inspiration, on their process, on the general ups and downs of making a life in music. So, whether you're a grizzled veteran, wondering why your job has not been taken over yet by an AI program, or else a scrappy upstart, working furiously to write computer code that will write a song for you, this is your show, because ultimately it is what every writer seeks most, an ironclad excuse to put off actually writing. Hey everybody, it's the second Friday of April 2023. I thank you for joining us. This week's show is brought to you by Bandzoogle. Built by musicians and for musicians, Bandzoogle is an all-in-one platform to build a beautiful website for your music. I'm old enough to remember when you had to pay somebody called a web developer to get a website made. And it would always be some guy named Brent who drove a Nissan Murano with an aftermarket window tint that was completely not street legal, and who was always trying to sell you a drug that he called poppers, that even now, a decade later, you're still not sure what they were. And old Brent would charge you about $1,000 for a website that would be obsolete in 6 months. But it's the future now, you guys. That's not how it works anymore. We're allowed to have nice things now. One of those nice things is Bandzoogle. Bandzoogle powers the websites of tens of thousands of musicians around the world, from weekend warriors to Grammy winners. All the features you need for a professional website are already built in. Hosting and a custom domain name, dozens of fully customizable design templates. Bandzoogle would like to congratulate its members this year on surpassing $100 million in commission-free sales through their websites. The Working Songwriter podcast listeners can go to bandzoogle.com to try it for free for 30 days. Use the promo code TWS, the initials of our show, TWS, to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. If you'd like to hear some of my music live in the coming weeks, you can check out my tour page, joepugmusic.com/tour, where there are a bevy of new tour dates posted all around the country from Annapolis, Maryland to Pioneer Town, California. Finally, if you enjoy this podcast, if you'd like to help it remain a viable endeavor for me, here's a couple things that you could do to help. First, you can become a supporter of the show over at Patreon. Patreon is a platform that allows you to directly support creative endeavors that you find meaningful. You just head to their site, Patreon. You search for The Working Songwriter, or you search for my name, and then you sign up to kick in a few bucks every month for the show. Think of it as a voluntary subscription, a subscription that you certainly don't have to pay for, but that you choose to pay for because you dig the show and because you won't miss a few bucks at the end of the month. If just 1% of our listenership would kick in the price of a cup of coffee every month, it would make an immense difference. So thank you to all the listeners who have taken the time and the capital to support the show in that way. If you're not in a place where you can contribute in that way, I totally get it. You could still help our show in a couple of ways that are free. First, you could leave us a rating in the iTunes store, or second, you could simply tell a friend about the show. Spread the word about the show, man. The simple math on those two things is that they will help me much more than they will be a pain in the ass for you. Okay, I'll end all the harassment there. This episode was taped a while ago, 6 or 7 months ago, at the Park City Song Summit in Park City, Utah, and I hope you enjoy my chat with Devon. Our guest this week hails from Morton, Pennsylvania. Devon Gilfillian attended school at Westchester University and moonlighted there with a number of local bands. He eventually signed with Capitol Records and went on to release a Grammy-nominated debut album with them in 2020. 3 of the song's singles charted on Billboard's adult alternative charts. He's appeared on CBS This Morning, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and Jimmy Kimmel Live. He's opened for Mavis Staples, Michael McDonald, Grace Potter, Gladys Knight, the Brothers Osborne, and many others. More recently, he signed with Fantasy Records to release Love You Anyway, which just came out last week. No Depression says that he crafts R&B for today. The Tennessean says that he sends soul music on an intergalactic journey. And the Bluegrass Situation calls him a genre-leaping singer-songwriter. I got a chance to catch up with him a while back at the Park City Song Summit to hear about his musical journey so far. Devon Gilfillian, thanks so much for being a part of the Working Songwriter Podcast. You grew up outside of Philadelphia. What did music look like in your household growing up?
Joe, it's great to be here, man. Thank you for having me, man. My dad he is a musician. He's a wedding singer right now, but grew up singing, playing percussion, and doing weddings and whatnot when I was a kid. So he was always learning music, always playing Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder was like the main thing, playing around the house, and then some Ray Charles, Temptations, all the Motown stuff, and then also, like, as a kid, I was listening to all this different stuff. I remember I was listening to like Puff Daddy and Pharrell and Ludacris and all this Kanye and a lot of hip hop early on. And it wasn't till I was 14 when I picked the guitar up that I truly fell in love with like Jimi Hendrix and rock and roll and Zeppelin and even like Leonard Skinner and anything that had anything to do with guitar shredding. That's the hallway I wanted to jump down.
You're kind of going the opposite direction of a lot of people. Anyone who's younger than me, it always boggles my mind when guitar music is what they get into, because at this point, it really is. It's a little bit countercultural, for people. Not completely so, but it's definitely not. Like when I grew up, it was just straight up Nirvana. Like it made sense that you would go to Guitar Center and get the electric guitar. What you're talking about there a couple of years there later and getting into guitar shredder music, what do you think drew you to that?
It's so funny. Like I had friends in high school that they played guitar, and then I watched the movie School of Rock with Jack Black, and that came out, and I was like, man, I want to be in a rock band. And that, like, music was I always wanted to be a musician or a producer of some sort. I remember being in 6th grade and we had to do some project where you look up your career, and I looked up music producer, and then found like it was like you could find how much they make, and it was like $45,000 a year. I was like, what? I want to that. Pharrell's making like millions of dollars though, but I still wanted to do it anyway. So music was definitely always, I wanted to play music in some way. And I always sang, like I sang growing up, but didn't really know my voice until I was like 21, 22.
Was there any music specifically coming out of like Philadelphia regionally or even locally that was affecting you?
Not per se, like, I didn't like. I definitely got a little bit into the roots, and was that I was listening like Jill Scott and Music Soul Child was playing in my house, and that kind of some of that neo soul stuff, and but that I didn't really get into like Hall & Oates and really into like the Philly soul sound, the OJs and the Delphonics and stuff till I was in college, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, right on. Well, that seems to be. Reading about your story, college seems to be obviously your time of education, but not at all the education that you intended on getting. You were playing in a cover band that was just playing an immense amount of music on any given night. Kind of reminded me of the Beatles in Hamburg. Here you go, you have 3 hours to cover to make your $50 in your chicken tenders, man. So, good luck. Kind of describe that period of your life and the music that you were learning then and the skills that you were learning from working in a band like that.
Absolutely. I feel like that was such an essential time in my life. I feel like that is how I learned to play music in front of people and really find my voice. And, it was through like having those like 3-4 hour acoustic gigs of mostly me accompanying myself. It was in college, really, and playing around college gigs and playing at the Grape Room in Manayunk in Philly, and like I found like my homies would come and play with me sometimes, like my buddies from high school, but they weren't really serious about it. So
Right.
I was always the one like, come on, man, we got to practice more and all that. But so that really, like, I was covering Zeppelin, Otis Redding, Adele, like all this super random stuff, just stuff that I loved. Temptations, Motown and kind of even Pearl Jam and like Eddie Vedder and like I was all over the place. I was just looking for voices that I thought were interesting and like finding my voice in doing those covers.
It's funny when you're just looking for stuff that is inspiring and you have no other filter throughout which to look at it. It is kind of funny how disparate. I mean, you're talking about, the Temptations and Pearl Jam in the same sentence there. But to me, as someone who plays music, like that makes sense. If it gives you a feeling, it gives you a feeling and you follow that.
Absolutely. And that's, I'm grateful I grew up just with such a wide variety of music that I just grew up listening to and loving. And I continue. My favorite thing is just to discover new music that I've never heard, and I think that to me that's just how you stay tapped in as an artist. Is
Yes. Why do you think, though? I mean, you mentioned that you'd have some friends from high school when everyone was casually playing. They'd come and play with you in your new thing, but they weren't taking it seriously. What do you think it is about you, your relationship with music, your character, to kind of embark on this crazy idea of doing it for a living? Because it is crazy. It's it's an insane way to make, or as it were, not make money. What made you different? What was the difference?
It always felt like, and I feel like there's probably other musicians that can relate to this, but like it just felt like I studied psychology in college, and that was like the backup plan, the plan B. And I took a victory lap, so it took me 5 years to get my degree, and I was just like, man, I don't want to be a therapist. Like maybe, music therapy could be a cool job, cool career, and like, but I was just like, I want to be an artist. I want to play guitar. I don't know, like at that point, I didn't really know who I wanted to be, but I was like, I'll play guitar in a psychedelic Afrobeat band and just be happy and, not even sing. Who cares? Like I was still finding my voice as a writer as well. Yeah. And really not till I got to Nashville after college, I like really started to sharpen my pen as a writer.
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, the backup plan thing, I had my favorite teacher from high school who made a profound difference on my life. I remember telling him what I was going to go to school for. I said, well, maybe I should have a backup plan. And he said, the only problem with a backup plan is that you might use it, And I always took that to heart. And it sounds like, so my version of not having a backup plan and just moving on, I dropped out of college. I moved to Chicago. Your version of this, I mean, there you are, you're attending school, in Pennsylvania and Westchester, you're playing the circuit, you're taking it kind of seriously, but it's not like move to Nashville seriously. You make a serious break. You move away from your family. I'm assuming that you didn't know a lot of people in Nashville. I'll take that guess.
No.
So not a lot of people make moves like that in their life. So kind of describe that process. What made you choose Nashville and what got you over the hump? I mean, speak for yourself, but to me, it was very scary to do that. And if it was scary for you too, what got you over that hump to go and do it?
To me, I was so excited to leave, and it felt like Delaware County and also Westchester was just a bubble of its own, and there was only so much growth. I kind of could see the amount of growth that would be there. Yeah. And I didn't really know anyone in like the Philly music scene deeply, so I didn't feel like that was where I would find my people either. So I was really in a time of like finding like what I wanted to do. I was like, I want to go to a music city. So I applied to AmeriCorps and applied to Nashville, New Orleans, and Austin to programs in those three cities, and then got accepted to the program in Nashville. Ah. And that's what took me down there.
Right on.
And I knew I was gonna find people.
What is the city and what is the scene that you found on the ground when you got there creatively?
I was super lucky. I immediately found Craigslist has been a crazy, beautiful thing in my life. So somehow I met T-Bone Burnett actually via Craigslist.
Okay, stop right there. Stop the story that you were telling and tell that story.
So I randomly, like on Craigslist, I was on there and it was like vocalists needed. And and I replied and did this session for this English guy. And I'm blanking on his name. I need to remember because he introduced me to T-Bone Burnett. But so
was it Robert Plant?
It Man, you look so familiar.
You know T-Bone Burnett?
It was this cat, and it was this English cat, and he was hilarious. I think his name was David, and he's like name dropping all these people and all. Oh yeah, I worked with this person in the Doors, blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, yeah, cool, sure. Yeah. And so like a year later, after I do this little session, he calls me and he's like, Devon, you gotta come to House of Blues studio. T-Bone Burnett is there and he wants to meet you. And I'm like, sure, okay. And I'm like, this guy's full of bullshit. I don't believe him. But I get there and T-Bone is there and he's like, what's up, man? Like, I love your voice. It's classic. And complimenting me and being the sweetest guy in the world. I was like, wow, this is...
Yeah.
And that in itself kind of sparked some like, people heads turning and whatnot. So that was
how did you stop yourself from just saying, can you get me a record deal right now? Please, God. Are you stuck in a rut? Are you tired of listening to that Jimmy Buffett 20th Century Masters CD over and over again and need some new music? Are you sick of making hamburger helper beef stroganoff for dinner every night and you want something new to cook? What you are looking for, my friends, is the Enthusiast Digest. That's my monthly newsletter which arrives in your inbox the first Sunday morning of every month, bursting with musical recommendations, poetry selections, recipes and cooking techniques for my favorite dishes, and items of general interest culled from the vast cesspool that is the internet. The Enthusiast Digest is free to subscribe to. If you dig the poetry that you hear on this show and the artists that you're hearing from, you'll dig the newsletter because I approach it with the exact same sensibility of curation. Go to joepugmusic.com/newsletter today to sign up for free. That is joepugmusic.com/newsletter. It takes approximately 15 seconds to sign up for a free newsletter that will enrich the first Sunday of your month with a veritable cornucopia of new and delightful recommendations. That's the Enthusiast Digest, the first Sunday of every month. Sign up for free at joepugmusic.com/newsletter. As Devon embarks upon what is sure to be a long and prosperous career in music and entertainment, it got me thinking of all the nights he'll be spending in nightclubs, theaters, green rooms, and dive bars. The life of a musician. And that always makes me think of a Robert Frost poem entitled Acquainted with the Night. I have been one acquainted with the night. I have walked out in rain and back in rain. I have outwalked the furthest city light. I have looked down the saddest city lane. I have passed the watchman on his beat and dropped my eyes, unwilling to explain. I have stood still and stopped the sound of feet, when far away an interrupted cry came over houses from another street. But not to call me back or say goodbye. And further still, at an unearthly height, one luminary clock stood against the sky, proclaimed the time was neither wrong nor right. I have been one acquainted with the night.
It wasn't the right move at the right time. You know?
No, I got it. So how did things get started from you? You have released your latest record on, Capitol Records. You've done late night TV. Like what is the path between Craigslist and, Jimmy Kimmel, basically? Like what happened? How did you build things piece by piece to go on that journey?
Well, the first thing is I met my drummer, also my manager, at City Winery when I was working there, just working as a waiter, slinging risotto balls and pizza and all that stuff and fried Brussels sprouts. And I was working the green room and kind of like chatting with some of the artists every now and then. But met John, my drummer and manager, and he was like, "Dude, what are you doing? Like, you need to put some songs out, bro." Mm-hmm. And I, at that point, was playing guitar for like a Delta Blues cover band. I was like playing with a electronic kind of like pop soul band and just supporting random people. And John was like, "Dude, your songs are insane. Like, you need to, let's record an EP." And so he really helped me out, hooked me up with some people in town, and we did some writing and recorded this EP in a couple days and put that out in 2016. And that was really the beginning of like people turning their heads and being like, "Oh man, this guy's doing some cool shit over here."
Sometimes artists do need somebody who has both on the business and on the music side an ability to focus what they're doing. You sound interested in like a lot of different things, and like you just said, like, "Hey man, I could have fun playing in an Afrobeat band in Westchester with no," but here you have someone come along that'd be like, "Hey man, that'd be great, but what about it?" What's it like to work with somebody who's able to help you focus like that? And what parts of your creative process do you have to let go of to be able to work hand in glove with someone who has a vision like that for you?
Man, it's honestly, it's crazy to work with people that, sometimes people, other artists, John is an artist in himself, and he sees the potential of what I can do, and so that in itself makes me step pushes me to like be a better, whatever it is, writer, songwriter, and guitar player, musician, and letting go of a part, like of a part of your ego. You gotta push your ego aside and say, okay, who are the people that I trust with my creative little baby that I have here, and this idea that I have, and I know that John is going to bring his brain to the table and his specialties and make this song better, or Taylor, my bass player, or Josh, my keyboard player, or anybody who I decide to bring in, and that's, I've learned for sure how to push my ego to the side, and also to push my ego to the front too at certain times when it's like nah, this is how I feel, this is what I feel, and this is what I hear.
Yeah, I've been pushing my ego to the front for 38 years, so I know exactly what you mean. Now, what did you learn from that original album process and the focusing part of it, and what did you have to get better at that point? Like, what parts of yourself, as you're working on that, it seems like you're working with musicians and songwriters who are more seasoned than you are. What part of your bag of tricks, so to speak, did you look at and say, shit, this has got to be stepped up to a different level?
Oh, I feel like the lyrical part of my writing process is the hardest part. And to me, it's like mining for gold. you know, like it takes so long, and music, like the least friction for me is melodies, chord progressions. That just comes to me. Even drum rhythms and all that stuff will come before the lyric most of the time. So that was one part that I knew that I had to get better at.
So what are some techniques that you use to improve that?
Journaling.
Yeah. All right. You're getting a little emo on me here, Devon,
I know it's I've read The Artist Way.
Yeah.
And I and she said, but honestly, I did actually read The Artist Way, and that was one thing that she said was like, just wake up and write 3 pages of free thought and get that out of the way, and that to me is getting the inner critic out of the way, and all the bullshit that I'm like worried about, and all these things that are just like not creative. Because I feel like when you sometimes if you just let your brain flow, it's like all these, you kind of get your anxieties and your worries and your all the things that are bothering you, and then you can get to this is what I need. I want to tap into creatively and spiritually. So that's what kind of helped me then, it's helped my pen flow a little bit faster. Yeah.
Gotcha. Now you're talking about your kind of eponymous and independently released debut. You go from there to putting your next and breakout record out with Capitol Records. And did you make that with Sean Everett, or did he just mix it?
Yes, yeah, he produced.
He produced it as well.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of his work, and I think he did a great job on that record. That just seems like a light year type jump that you got to make, because Sean Everett's out there making records with the Killers and stuff like that, and so you have to jump your game up to a certain point to work with him. What was the process like working with him in that second record, on the artistic end with him? And what was it like also, this is a 2-part question, of doing it on the business end, working with a much larger entity?
Honestly, Sean was it was like working with a homie that wants to just get weird, and he's Sean himself. It's so funny. When I met him, we met at this place, the Bread Lounge down the street from his studio, and he ordered this huge salad for breakfast and was chomping this salad down. And I was telling him my vision for the album. Man, I want to take soul and rock and roll and gospel and take it out of the ground and put it in a spaceship and send it to the moon. And he's like, yeah, I want to do that. That sounds great. I'm in. And he's just, he has the spirit of a child, as far as just what his adventure and is where he wants to go with music and take the music, and he wants to break all the rules as far as how it should be recorded, and so working with him was just a breeze. And as far as working with Capitol and the bigger entity, that also was, I'm lucky it didn't become difficult in any way. It was definitely they let us do what we wanted to do, which was amazing. There's definitely opinions, and I think this song should be the single, or
Sure.
But when it came down to it, I got to make the art that I wanted to, which is rare for a lot of artists to say when they're on a label.
That makes sense. And you know what? I've never minded the idea of people on the label or business end picking the single for an album. To me, it's all right, I made something here. It's a piece of art. I'm not the one that knows how to market it. You know how to market it. So, that's your job, man. You figure out what the single is. I know I have friends who get really hung up on that. No, I know how to do this. This is what the business end needs to be. And it's yeah, maybe you do. And maybe you are, maybe you are Kurt Cobain, I don't know, and you know everything of how to make it work and become a global smash. But, a lot of times, just like what you were talking about earlier with your drummer and your manager, like, it's all right to let other people in who have a vision for how you can focus something, who have a vision for how they can market something that you're working on.
Absolutely. And that's I feel like one of the hard parts of the music business is, finding the teammates to bring on board and the people that really truly believe in your vision, and you got to vet people super hard in order to find that. And once you do, you gotta let them in. You gotta let them be part of it, because
100%.
It takes an army for sure.
Well, you've been definitely living the life the last 5, 6, 7 years. Last time I saw you, you and I were playing music on a cruise ship. I'll just be frank.
Yes.
and then in the intervening 5 years, just been on the road. It's a lot of work being on the road, and it's a very strange lifestyle. How have you adjusted to it, and how have you avoided some of its pitfalls, or what are some of the pitfalls that you've fallen into in the last 5 years?
Like when you first start off on the road, you're like, yeah, let's go out every night. Let's get some shots and some beers to tequila. You go, every night feels like vacation and a party and all that. And that, I feel like that very quickly ended. Like in the first year of touring, it was like, okay, we gotta balance it out a little bit. Yeah. And, like you really learn that when you're in a van with 3 other people, you learn how to, you got to respect each other's energies, and really kind of, you can't come in with like, I'm feeling like I'm having a terrible day. It's like, yo, man, like, we're all tired here. We're all exhausted. Like, let's like get some coffee and some breakfast, and then let's talk about it. Just learning everyone's needs in the band, and how to balance that. And I feel like that's been a long learning process.
The not going out every night thing, though, is really difficult. It reminds me of, I remember after the Warriors first won the championship, Draymond Green did an interview, and they said, "What's the new season like?" He's like, "Well, now that we're the champs, the new season sucks, because every time we come to whoever's building, to us it's just Tuesday night, we got to play a game, but to them it's like we want to knock down, this is a big deal, we want to get these guys." Well, when you're on the road and when you're touring, it's like, to you it's a Tuesday night, but to the people who came to see the show on a Tuesday night, they're like, "Dude, I took off work tomorrow and we're getting twisted." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're like, cool, I gotta be in I have to be in,
we got a 7
Fairbanks, Minnesota tomorrow to play a fish fry. So I don't know about that.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta. And there's been too many hungover laying in the back of the van rides. I'm like, nope, I don't want to do that. I'm good on that.
I had a brief reprieve when I figured out that you could take Advil and Tylenol at the same time. That gave me another 2 years to my career of doing that. But that's worn out at this point. Now that I'm pushing 40. What do you think? This has been a very fast and intense ride for you, but to the degree that you can reflect on it, maybe you're not in a place yet where you can, but to the degree that you can, what do you think, and this is an opportunity for you to be as immodest as you'd like to be, what do you think that you've improved at the most in that time?
Man, I feel like I have improved in just knowing who I am as an artist and what I want and what musical direction I want to go.
So who are you? What did, like, drill down on that a little bit, though.
Devon Gilfillian. I'm just a mixed melting pot of so many things, of soul, of gospel, of rock and roll, of folk, of disco, of funk, of.
Let me ask you a better question. What are you not?
What am I not?
Like,
man.
What, doing this for a while, you must find things and working with different people. Like, you hear a suggestion, you're like, no, I don't do that. That doesn't work for me. I have a voice now, and that's not how this works.
Yeah, to me, I'm here to spread love, and that to me is the purpose of music, and it's to heal. And I'm definitely not one that I feel like there's musicians out there, artists that do anything for the camera or for the money, and even if it's lying, even if it's, you know, just being a jackass in front of the camera just for the, you know, to me, I'm here to have fun, but I'm here to spread love. And that to me is number one. Yeah.
That is a great place to leave it. Devon Gilfillian, thanks so much for being a part of the Working Songwriter Podcast. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, brother.
This week's show is brought to you by Bandzoogle. Built by musicians and for musicians, Bandzoogle is an all-in-one platform to build a beautiful website for your music. Use promo code TWS, the initials of our podcast, TWS, to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. Devon Gilfillian's latest album is entitled Love You Anyway, available everywhere music is sold or streamed. If before we meet again you sit down to write, please remember, an expensive drug habit is not a song, a compelling Instagram account is not a song, and most importantly, reverb is not a song. So let all that take care of itself, and for you, just keep your eye on the song.